They say that the only limits that you have are the ones in your mind. Now, what if I told you that there is a way for you to shut down those little thoughts that creep into your mind and stop you doing what you're doing, especially if you're prepared for it? What if there's a way to get a handle of those limiting beliefs that literally stop you dead in your tracks when you're making plans? My next guest has made it her mission to help people break through limiting beliefs and live their fullest potential. Soul purpose and mindset coach Kai Simmonds is back by popular demand to talk to us about and do a deep dive on limiting beliefs and how we can potentially change our internal narrative in order to thrive. Kai, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here and be back with you.
I know. I was gonna say, I'm like, this is part 2. I'm gonna link your previous episode because honestly, it was amazing. I kept getting DMs. I'm like, oh my God, this really changed my life. I love this episode. So I'm just so happy that we got the opportunity to do this again because I remember specifically talking about doing a part 2 on limiting.
Yes, yeah.
And I find that this topic is not, I think it's just a universal truth. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who's immune to, I don't know if it's self-doubt or if it's just your sort of that little voice in your head. But there is not a single person on the planet that doesn't go through this.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Now, of course, for those who don't know you, who are you?
Yeah.
What are you all about?
Yeah.
What gets you up and gets you going?
Yeah, so I am all about living your soul purpose. And in order to do that, the biggest thing that you need to do is overcome your limiting beliefs, your unprocessed emotions, and your trauma. And the way that I do this is through mindset work, shadow work, and somatics, which is what we'll kind of get into today because there's so many different things. I always say that I'm my first client. So it was me having to overcome my limiting beliefs first, and then being able to go and, get the different certifications, training, and knowledge to be able to help others. And I really think there's so many different tools, and a lot of times people don't understand it and they just think there's one thing. And if it's not working for them, they're like, oh, okay, this is kind of how I have to live my life. But it's actually, there's so many things. And that's why I just love what I do is giving people exposure to the different types of way that you can overcome your limiting beliefs, because there's more than one. And sometimes at certain parts of your life, one part will work good and then another part will have to come in. So, but at the end of the day, it's all about being true to yourself, which for me is soul purpose, because I believe every single one of us have a purpose and it comes from within. It comes from our soul. So yeah, a lot of that work is just overcoming the limiting beliefs.
I'm excited to hear. I don't know what shadow work is, but
yeah,
I've kind of had a look through your website. It looks very interesting. I saw, your description of it. I think it's the same thing. It's just to live, and I don't swear on this, but to live your effing magical life. I was just, yes. What is that? I mean, what is shadow work?
So shadow work is all about working with your subconscious. So I think we touched on it in that first episode. But when it comes to our limiting beliefs, and I'm sure we'll get into this a bit more, our limiting beliefs are mostly in our subconscious mind. And I think what I shared before is that 90 to 95% of our behavior is governed by our subconscious mind. So that's why it's so hard for people you start a gym and then you maybe after a few weeks kind of it doesn't go, or you want to quit smoking or you want to lose weight. You always got a great start, but then you find yourself struggling. It's because that subconscious mind, those things in your subconscious are kind of holding you back. So with shadow work, it's about bringing things from your subconscious into your consciousness. So then you can take real steps and you can start to shift your subconscious mind, which again, subconscious and conscious is your mindset. So that's where the mindset work comes in. And then again, overcome your limiting beliefs and start to live that life aligned to your soul purpose, which is who you really are. So I'll definitely touch more on it. But yeah, that's shadow work.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like now more than ever, limiting beliefs, I don't know whether it's the rise of the digital age of social media or the fact that we've got so much access to information, that there is always going to be this, maybe an unconscious seed of doubt. You know how when people say ignorance is bliss? And I feel like we're the exact opposite of that right now.
Yeah.
So just to kind of take it full circle, what can be defined as a limiting belief?
So a limiting belief is something that you believe to be true that isn't. I like to say it, your false stories. So again, belief, it's not true. But we believe it to be true. And so it's definitely something that holds you back and limits you. So it's a story that you have in your head about something that you believe is true. And it's not. It's not true. And but we think it's true because our mind is kind of tricky like that. So that's like the most basic kind of like way to think of it.
And did you find that, I find it, the majority, like you said, you were your own test subject almost.
Yeah, with my first client.
Is that something that you had dealt with a lot?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always thought it was just like a me problem. Like I thought I was like the only one in the world who had such, I call it my inner critic. And I thought I was the only one in the world who had such a strong, overpowering inner critic. And I was just like looking at everyone, I was like, why is everyone so normal? And I've got this like horrible voice in my head telling me bad things. So the first thing, which is kind of a bit of relief now, is now that it's more openly spoken about, right? Like before I thought it was just, and again, this is like 5 years ago, right? So things have gotten better. But yeah, no, there were so like, if you had met me 4 or 5 years ago, I'm a different person. Different. I was a back of the room kind of person. There were so many things that I believed about myself to be true. Like I had so much debt. I thought I was bad with money. I had body image issues. I was afraid to speak. And it affected every single area of my life, like my romantic, my finances, my professional. And I just kept myself in this little box because that voice in my head kept telling me, you can't do one, you can't do two, you have to. So when I broke out of it, and then I was like, oh, I can do these things. And then working with my clients and seeing them break out of their boxes, I was like, we don't have to stay in these boxes. And that's the thing that really, again, just makes me so excited about the work I do.
What was the catalyst for you to break out?
Oh, it was a massive burnout, massive panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I always tell people like, I was stubborn. So I came here as a teacher. I started having panic attacks in the middle of a classroom, which is not a good place as a teacher to have a panic attack when you've got like 25 kids.
I was like, what's going on here?
And yeah, and I was like, for me, I thought it was like an overnight thing. But now that I look back, I was like, oh no, there were little signs. And so it happened a few times. So like, oh, okay, it's fine. Let me just brush it under the rug. So then it didn't happen for 6 months. I changed schools. I was in a more better environment. But then I started having panic attacks while I was driving. Also not a good place to have panic attacks. And then I was like, it was actually a lot of push from my husband saying like, this is not normal. Like you can't just, and then that's when the journey started of like getting into yoga, we did couples therapy before we got married, which honestly, that was a big eye-opener, both for me and him, of understanding like a lot of our limiting beliefs from our childhoods came into our relationship and made us very much like, it was during COVID. And I feel like there were like the couples that were going to break up or getting married or getting right there.
Yeah.
We were the ones about to break up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really love this person, but we're fighting too much. And so then in therapy, the couples therapy, that's even more when this kind of, it's not that he's a bad person or I'm a bad person. It's our limiting beliefs bringing it into our relationship and then creating this like conflict with us. So it was like this, and then it just became a snowball. Like one thing after another, I was like, oh, what is this? What is this? Therapy? Or what is this? Sound healing, energetics, or somatic work, shadow work. So, and it still is. Like I'm still continuing to learn about the different ways that we can overcome it, different tools. So it was like a 1, 2, 3. But again, it wasn't an overnight.
No.
I really was not listening when my body was like, hey, something's wrong with the first panic attack. And then again, 6 months.
It's funny how your mind tricks you almost. And it just sort of says, okay, you could have potentially chalked it up to, I didn't sleep well.
Yes.
Or I was a bit tired.
Yes.
Or this was a bit stressful.
Yep.
And then it goes away.
Yep.
But then it comes back.
And it comes back worse.
Yeah. It comes back worse.
Yeah.
And you're not really expecting it.
Yeah.
And I think as humans, we have a potential coping mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
To really almost, I don't know. I find it's either that or we've been trained out of tuning in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, there was something that somebody said, it stuck with me, that we are just a vessel with a head going into meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as opposed to we've just disconnected.
Yeah.
What's going on in the rest of you? How are you in discomfort?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Are you feeling a certain?
Yeah.
Because you're so focused on the task at hand.
A lot of things that I talk about is where a lot of us are living in autopilot
Yeah.
of exactly what you said. And we're just going through the motions sometimes. And that's what the limiting beliefs keep us in the motion. So again, breaking that and not being on autopilot and living your soul purpose and living a life that you love. Yeah, that's definitely.
It's one of those things that I really think, everyone keeps saying, sort of go back to basics. It's a lot harder than you think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It doesn't come naturally.
No.
To go back to basics.
No.
Even now, I'm sitting here. I am comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell me, are you as comfortable as you are when you're at home and you're sitting on your couch or in bed? No, of course not. It's just these type of things I find now as I age. Somebody also told me, I get anxiety a lot. So everyone's always said, not everyone, one particular person said, just do a bit of a scan. How am I feeling? How's the temperature? What's going on?
Yeah.
How's my heart feeling? Is it racing? Is it on? Am I sweaty? That type of thing is just almost take a deep breath.
Yeah.
More than what is going on around me.
Yeah.
Just to have a bit of a check-in.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than
it is. It's a skill. It's a practice. And this is somatics. It's all about coming back to our body, because we're not taught that our body can give us these things, but we're always told, oh, your mind can figure it out, this. And our mind, it just goes and goes. But with the work that I've been doing, it's all about how do we, because our mind is tricky, tune into our body. Like what you just said, how do I check in with my heartbeat? How do I check in with my breath? How do I notice the temperature? That is somatics. And that's one of the tools that I use when it comes to overcoming your limiting beliefs, because your mind can make up these tricky, sneaky lies that you never get to.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think, again, you touched on it slightly when you said that you and your husband went to therapy. The idea of, I guess, childhood and culture.
Yeah.
How does that play into, I guess, specifically limiting beliefs or these little internal thoughts?
Oh, like I was saying, the limiting beliefs are stored in our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind forms from age 0 to 9. So our whole subconscious is formed from those ages, childhood, and what we're learning. And then they stay stuck in our subconscious, right? So we have this, I always like it's an old program, right, that we've gotten from childhood that we have brought into adulthood, which hasn't gotten upgraded.
Yeah, no.
They need an update and upgrade.
iOS.
Yeah, exactly. We need to, and that's the part of the work is like, these are stuff you learn in your childhood that, again, either on purpose or through your parents or through school or through society. And now you're like just on that old version 1, right, of your mind, which is insane to think about when we're much older.
So I mean, obviously I'm a parent. I've got 2 little boys.
Yeah.
They're 7 and 4.
Yeah.
It gives me so much anxiety thinking that I could potentially be passing down things that are going to stop them from reaching their full potential.
Yeah.
And I think whoever is listening thinking, okay, so now we know that it's in our hands.
Yes.
How?
So I have a lot of,
I mean, obviously they have that loaded question.
I have a lot of,
It's really
clients who are moms. So I've heard this before. And one of the coaches I work with, she's a mom too. And so it's always you. It starts with you. So there's one thing I learned about generational trauma. It's called epigenetics, and Gabriel Mathur talks so much about it. Is we're unconsciously passing these kind of things down to our future children. So the best thing you can do for them is to work on yourself, is to heal those things, is to learn how to do this work, how to let yourself, process your emotions, how to overcome anxiety, not to beat yourself up, because children, they're like sponges.
Absolutely.
And it's not even about a lot of the things that I've understood. It's not the things my parents said to me directly, implicitly. It was the behaviors that they had that I subconsciously picked up. So it's not even about of course you want to consciously parent them, but it's also what are you doing when
in the background,
because they see you.
Yeah.
Again, subconsciously, they're not watching you, right? It's a subconscious thing.
But they are. I mean,
they are.
They are. They literally are front row and center to your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find it's quite difficult when you talk about things like passing down certain things or generational trauma, because you yourself don't have the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes almost, don't know, it's so much anxiety ridden when you're dealing with your own stuff.
Yeah.
And you're so worried you don't want to pass them.
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
children to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And take that into their adulthood. So it's just, so it's sort of the buck stops with you.
Yeah, exactly. It ends with you. It ends with you. That's my thing is like, especially with me and my husband, is like going to therapy is like, it ends with us. Like, and I can, through this journey, I've unpacked so many things that I've inherited with my parents, of the anxiety I got from my dad, this stonewalling I got from my mom, that I never knew that, right? Because it was all subconscious. And then now I'm aware of it. And it's so interesting because I had like a difficult relationship with my parents. But now that I've worked on myself, I see them with so much empathy and forgiveness and love. And I now see them. It's a weird thing. When you start working on yourself, again, this is like a different reverse. I now see my parents asking me about, oh, what's this coaching thing? Oh, what's this yoga thing? Oh, what does this do? Or what does like, instead of like, just like, oh, what are you doing that woo-woo stuff and da-da-da-da.
It's almost a validation.
Yeah. So the more you work on yourself, the more you spend time on things, it doesn't even have to be like, it's a teaching that they will see you. They will see you relax. They will see you instead of, like getting stressed out, like you start to self-soothe, you start to self-regulate. Like, oh, mommy takes deep breaths when she gets, stressed. Maybe I take deep breaths when I get stressed. And it's again, like they pick these up. So I always say it's like you work focus, because it's too much when you're focusing on this.
It is. I mean, again, I can only speak for myself. I mean, there are times, and I'm never going to sit there. I'm like, oh, I am always very patient.
Right.
And my tone is always like, it's not.
Yeah. No.
It's not. And the thing is, I try to justify it when I do yell and scream at them.
Yeah.
To own it and say, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
This is in my head, I've sort of justified that I've lost the handle on this. Maybe because you and your brother keep fighting.
Yeah.
Or you keep taking off your seatbelts in the car.
Yeah.
Or things that are just pushing me.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get to a destination. The seatbelt in the car thing is just the most irritating thing on the planet. But, it's small little things that would trigger me, mostly because I've put my finger on it, I think.
Yeah.
When I have something else I need to do. So something in the back of my mind, and the kids are doing what kids do, but I'm trying to focus on that thing.
Yeah.
And they're, not allowing me to focus.
Yeah.
So I've now learned slightly, getting better, but how to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Finish that.
Yes.
And then just be a little bit more there.
Yes.
Because it's almost like any attention is good attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then obviously at the times where I feel like I've sort of lost it a little bit, I do come back and say, I'm really sorry, to be honest, that this is what I've done.
Yeah.
This is what I needed to do. I'm sorry I yelled at you and your brother, but you shouldn't be hitting each other. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like the majority of us have the best intention, but it's quite difficult.
It is. And you're never going to be perfect.
No.
And again, with that trauma, it's just like, can I just give them a little less? Like, like, can I pass on just a little less?
I mean,
that's it.
My overarching question. Is there a point where you just don't pass on any level of trauma?
I don't know. I don't think that's, I honestly don't think that's it's just for me, and it's not about like not having trauma. It's about having tools to deal with the trauma and the triggers.
Yeah.
That's it. Because there was like this point, I was like, oh, once I heal, I'll do this. Once I heal. And like, there's not this magical destination where you're healed and it's more of like, oh, now when the inner critic comes up, it takes 30 seconds for me to have a dialogue with it and then to push it aside.
As opposed to the whole day.
Versus the whole, I would listen to it. And then it would dictate my day, my week, and it would overpower me. So again, it's not about healing it, and it's about you having tools and giving that tools to your children, to people. And then they're like, oh, because besides you, they're at school, they're on social media, they're gonna get something. So
we're not,
life. We don't just, But if you give them the tools, they'll be able to handle it much better than like me.
Though we did, or my parents are absolutely. Like that's the thing. It's just to be able to pick yourself. Sort of that level of resilience that you would need to go on.
Yep.
When life has a way of just being life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We can't stop bad things from happening.
No.
And as much as every well-meaning parent would want to shelter and protect our child, things are going to happen.
Yeah.
You hope that they don't crumble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's why the idea of limiting, I mean, obviously not just to crumble, you want them to thrive.
Right.
You want them,
Right.
if they say to me, I'm going to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you
Yeah.
can be an astronaut.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you.
Yeah.
So it's that type of balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, in terms of upbringing and the societal conditioning.
Yeah.
As a society, do you feel that we sort of perpetuate limiting belief?
Absolutely. And I think it comes with what you were saying earlier about like with the digital age, with social media, because now we have access to so many things. Before it was just like our community, our town. And we have this thing as humans, we like to compare ourselves, right? So before we're just comparing ourselves to the village, right? To that we lived in. But now we're comparing ourselves to like everyone.
The world.
And then that's where then the limiting beliefs become magnified because yeah, it is. But at the same time, I always say like, but now we have more awareness. Now we have more tools. Now people are talking about it. And like, now you get to decide. Like there was a point where like every time on social media, I was like comparing myself, especially like, starting your own business or podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, how does she have like 10,000? Yeah, like this. And it's just never ending. And then my inner critic would come up and get real loud. And now my Instagram is just cats. Just cats and yoga, because what am I going to compare myself to? Like, but when I'm scrolling, I don't wanna think about like this and this. I do enough work that, in my business and things that I'm like, I'm doing work. Yeah. I don't need to compare myself to like a coach who's in chapter 50 and I'm only on chapter 5.
Absolutely.
Like that's what will happen. So yeah, there's definitely that. But at the same time, we have the choices now to, you don't have to go off of social media completely, but you can be like, curate your feed, like declutter your feed and
curate.
Yeah. Funny thing.
It is a funny thing. And to be honest, I feel like that is almost like a constant, you are getting almost this like assault every time, you do this. And look, comparison is a human being phenomenon. It's something that we always do. Yeah. I think, I'm not anywhere near, somebody that can talk about the evolutionary aspect of it, but I'm pretty sure it's a survival thing.
Yeah.
But now the comparisons are in every aspect of
Yeah. And too big for our brains to process. We have ancient software. We also and our phones are getting upgrades as well. And we cannot. We were not built for this amount of information that we're meant to have all the time. Yeah, it's absolutely, we need to know that with ourselves. And that's now that I understand that, I'm like, okay, I don't need to consume. I need to stop. Exactly.
It's the same. I've been doing this now for 2 years. I love it.
Yeah.
I do it, honestly. It's not, I mean, of course, you want it to do well and you want it to grow and, all of that. But more than anything else, I've said it a million times, after we end this conversation, I leave with a pep in my step. So this is part of my self-care.
Yeah.
Something that I do just for myself.
Yeah.
So why would I stop if it's not hurting me, my children, my family?
Right.
In fact, it's making me a better human being.
Yeah.
But the drive
to
get it bigger, look at the KPI. Yes. What are your downloads? What is
Stephen Bartlett and his like even billion subscribers.
Well, yeah, it was that Joe Rogan, and I'm thinking like, yeah, my God, I am absolutely like, but in my mind, in my naive little mind, in my little bubble at home, they think I'm a superstar.
You are though. You are, but that's the thing is, and if you stayed in your village and your thing, you would be.
But that's all I need, It's fine. My mom and my dad and my very close family, they think, wow, look what you've done.
Absolutely.
But in the grand scheme of, but why am I comparing to the grand scheme of things? Yeah. And therefore, a lot of the things that I would think, oh, I would really like to do that. But then in my mind is like, really though? You really cut out for that, Rhea? You're this big and they're that big.
Yeah.
And then the imposter syndrome comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, is that what it is? It's imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs. Are they intertwined?
Yeah. So, well, the way I define it is imposter syndrome. These are my 3 top that for myself. Yeah. And my clients come up, the imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and people pleasing. These are all limiting beliefs. And these are all mine and all the ones. And again, there are so many more. And these are all stuff that my clients struggled with and still today, like those 3 are my challenge. And yeah, they are limiting beliefs. They're thinking like, oh, you need to be Stephen Bartlett to be successful, right? And if you're not Stephen Bartlett, you can't be successful. A podcast, but it's like, why? No. Yeah. I don't want to be Stephen Bartlett. I want to be Raya and I want to do
like, if you're watching this, I'd love to have you on.
In case, yes. If Stephen Bartlett gets here, yes, come to Dubai.
No, I know what you mean. It's just, it's that I think so many people would resonate with that. The imposter syndrome, people pleasing, and what was it?
Perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
Yeah. And they all come down to one core belief, which is I'm not good enough. So perfectionism, I can only be loved if I'm perfect because who I am isn't good enough. People pleasing is my feelings don't matter. Other people's do. Mine are not good enough. Imposter syndrome is I need to be someone else in order to be loved because who I am is not good enough. So they're all these not good. They all come down. So like they're overlapping, right? But it's not good enough. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to shadow work. It's like within our shadow, there's three people. There's our not self. There's the person that we believe we have to be in order to be loved from society. There's the repressed self, our unprocessed traumas, our unprocessed emotions. And then there's the part of us that, oh, I need to be this person in order to be loved. So you have different parts of your shadow. And so for me, with the shadow work, it's taking those parts that are in your subconscious. I like to call it your subconscious, like your dark closet. It's all the stuff you shove in the back of the corner and you just like don't want to deal with. It's like messy and then you hide it, but it never really goes away. Instead, it creeps up into your life as an inner critic, as this belief. So with shadow work, we're cleaning out your dark closet. We're cleaning out your subconscious. We're bringing that to light and we're pinpointing those points in your life where you felt that for the first time and that belief entered your mind. And there's the most random things like you would not believe. Like sometimes, and I know with trauma, it's such a big word. Like there's big trauma, things that we're aware of, like sexual, physical, that. And then there's little t, which is sneaky. And it's like, this is where most of the limiting beliefs is that little t. Little t.
Okay.
But it's not. And the funny thing is, and I know I keep calling it big and little t, but in our mind, the little t is just as big as the big T. It thinks that, like for my little t, which was, I was always afraid of speaking. And in university, when we had to do presentations, I would be absent on those days because I didn't want to speak. Like that's how much. It came to a point when I was in a classroom, when I was like in 4th grade. Again, this is through therapy. I don't know this, right?
I find that very hard to make. No, you speak so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. I remember just sitting in the classroom and then someone raising their hand and then getting the answer wrong and everyone laughed at them. And then that's when the little T had of like, oh, if I raise my hand and speak up and I get it wrong, people will laugh at me, they'll make fun of me, and they'll never be liked. But like, it's so random. And from there, it just stayed in my subconscious, planted like a seed. And it would, anytime, like I remember I didn't really do well in school because I wasn't the person raising their hand. And like, like I was always, but when the teacher asked a question, I knew the answer in my head, but I was too scared to raise my hand because of this. And I kept that old programming all the way into adulthood. And it wasn't until I started getting into that subconscious and bring it forward and be like, actually, no, I that's not true anymore. And then starting to do 1%, which we were talking about earlier, of like you shift your limiting beliefs through 1%. One day I show up on social media, I say hello on my story. That was a big thing.
That was a huge thing.
Showing my face and speaking.
Yeah.
That was, or even before that, it was posting a picture, making a social media for my business. That was it. But again, it's just 1%, 1%, 1%. And now it's like, give me a mic and you give me a topic, I'll go on stage, like, but it was 1%, 1%, 1%. But it had to come from the subconscious, that moment, that memory where it brought into my consciousness. And I'm like, challenging it, giving it the evidence. Like I always say, our mind is an evidence building machine. So when you start to give it evidence, it's like, oh, so that's why I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of journaling. That's the evidence. When you read something, you're like, oh, that's not true. Like, you know what I mean?
I need to get into it. I haven't. There's so many benefits to journaling.
Yeah.
And writing things down. I haven't. To be honest, the only reason why I just feel like it's just another task for me to do. So that's why I don't think I'm there yet.
Yeah.
But I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's like when you have a process of how you do it, it makes more sense. Like it even just journal. I don't journal. Like la la la. Like I have to
write it down.
Yeah.
Like I'm annoyed or
yeah,
I didn't do well here or something like that.
Like, well, one of the things that techniques and things that I teach my clients and that they do, and then now I've got to the point where I can do it in my head, is like when a thought comes up, right? And again, you need to have space for doing this, so not like while you're driving, is you start writing down all the things your inner critic says, right? And then you start seeing it, and then you name that inner critic. So when it comes into your mind, you're automatically disassociating or creating a space between who you are and that voice. And when I was doing this and I wrote it down, it was just like for weeks, you just write down what it says. You don't, that's it. For a week, oh, today it said this. Today it said this. Today it says
I
that.
remember you mentioned this to me, and then you had a name specifically
Yes.
for.
I had two, yeah.
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 What were their names?
One is the Punisher. Oh, one is Petty Patty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but the thing is, you write it down, and that's another way. Like when I wrote it down, the Punisher is not my voice. It was my dad's voice. And it was not because he was a bad dad, but he worked from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., like taking care of us, which I'm so grateful for. And the only time I saw him was, I played sports my whole life, is in basketball or soccer practice. So I'm there at basketball or soccer practice, and he's yelling at me because I missed a thing and da-da-da-da-da. And so in my mind, it was like, oh, in order to be loved, I need to be perfect, because that's the only time I got attention from him. And again, it's not because he was a bad father. He wanted to help me. He played basketball, so he even knew what to do. But that was where my perfectionism came up, as like, oh, unless I make every single goal, my dad will not love me. And so again, though, from my subconscious into my conscious.
Because also you're young, and interpretation is flawed. Not flawed, but it's misguided.
Yeah, it's incomplete. Like we don't have, and again, like my parents didn't have the tools to
explain,
because they didn't have the tools for themselves. So when you have the tools for yourself first, then you'll have that tools to then explain to your kids of like, oh, I yelled at you because I want you to do better, but I will love you whether you make the shot or you don't make the shot. You know, it's just those little things that, but again, there's no anger. There was a lot of anger in my 20s towards them, but now I'm like, they did the best they could. And they really wanted the best for me at the end of the day. I just didn't understand it. And again, it's about the tools, the knowledge of like when these things happen, how do you process this?
It's the age-old narrative. Yeah, they wanted the best for me. They had no idea how. They just navigating life themselves.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing that they knew.
Yeah.
And I think I find, especially in our generation, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but in our, like this generation, it wasn't this. Conversations about how to nurture and look after and communicate and tools.
Yeah.
Weren't there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, and I feel like that, you know, we grew up a bit of a nervous bunch.
Yeah.
Of people.
Yeah.
And we are people pleasers.
Yeah.
I met a lot of people like me.
Yeah.
And I am definitely one. I'm trying definitely to be a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And that's the honest truth.
Yeah.
But I find it I dance around the subject.
Yeah.
I dance around it. If I don't want to do, I truly don't want to do, I just need to say it in a polite way.
Yeah.
I don't need to be rude.
Agree.
But
Agree.
I'm really sorry, I won't be able to do this.
Yeah. Agree.
You know, and I think that is what I want for the kids.
Yeah.
I don't want arrogant, rude,
of course,
unkind human beings.
Of course.
I want empathy.
Yeah.
Also self-advocacy.
Yeah. Boundaries.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's definitely something that, we kind of have to be mindful.
Absolutely.
I guess we didn't get that.
No, but I think even the fact that, you know, we're having these conversations and you are having these conversations, that's like so many steps forward of like having this awareness. Yeah. And then after awareness is practice.
I remember one thing that you said on the previous podcast, that your default subconscious is negative.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, all of ours are.
That's bizarre.
I still can't believe. Like, so I always do, one of my things is like, we have like, I think 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. On default, on autopilot, 70 to 80% of them are negative. All of us humans.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
It's not. It comes back to like whole evolutionary psychology of like when we grew up, as early humans, like back then, we didn't have shelter. We didn't have, technology. We were living out in nature. So we constantly had to be scanning. And that's a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is constantly scanning for danger to protect ourselves. And again, ancient software since then, it hasn't evolved. So every time we go into a situation, especially as women, our amygdala goes off. We're constantly searching for danger because of that's how especially as women, and like we even look for danger even more because of like, things in the world. So yeah, it's when I say negative, it's because our mind is going into every situation, right? And they're looking for danger. Is this dangerous? Is this dangerous? And it's actually trying to protect us, right? So even our inner critic, I always say, like, don't fight with it. You have to speak to it lovingly because it's a part of you that thinks it's protecting you from danger. That's all we are. We're just trying to survive. At the end of the day, we are humans, and all we want to do is survive. And danger equals death and non-survival. So our mind does these things to keep us safe. But we don't understand this. So again, that negative thought is, again, trying to keep us safe, trying to stop us from danger. And again, women have it way more, and especially mothers, because you have even more. You're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your children. And again, that's an innate human instinct that we have. So it's kind of just becoming aware of that. And like, we're always with my clients, how can we teach our body that it's safe? What does safety feels like in our body? What does it feel like to be safe? And this is like the dialogue now that I have with my inner critic. It's like, da 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 da, this is going to happen. I'm like, you are safe. It's literally telling yourself, you're not in danger. You're not going to die. You are safe. And that's a lot of the dialogue that now these days, that self-talk I have with myself. Before it was like a fight with my inner critic. I'm like, you're stupid. You're dumb. You don't know what you're doing. I'm like, you are safe.
Over exaggerating.
Yeah. Now I'm like, you are safe. And when I say that, and then when I take a deep breath and I just hold it, that's now the difference between what I would let it just take over and then just be like anxious all the time and be like, what about this? This is like, you are safe. And kind of just the breath. But yeah, so yeah, it's how we're designed as humans. It's biology, which is so annoying.
It is really fighting against like
your human nature. Yeah, exactly. But you can, and it's not that hard.
And I think, again, going back to just even, I mean, obviously, I feel like so many aspects of life, you do have, I guess, potential good and bad. And I think it's almost like a spectrum. I mean, I don't think any one of us has the same limiting beliefs. Like, everybody's very, very different.
Yeah.
It's always so interesting to hear people who are really successful in their professional life or very successful in their personal life or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, the idea of potentially taking risks and what that looks like, how they were able to take these risks and quieten down this negative belief. Yeah, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. But they did it anyway.
Yeah.
I always find that so fascinating.
I think with that, because I do listen to a lot of like entrepreneurs and things like that, and what they always say to get to where they are successful is they took a lot of risk and they failed a lot, but they got back up. So that's the thing I was saying earlier, is your mind is an evidence building machine. So when they took these risks and they failed, but they got back up and they did again, it then told their mind and that like, oh, you will fail, but you'll get back up. So they kept going and they kept going and they kept going. And like every successful entrepreneur can tell you like, okay, I have 5 great businesses, but I had like 500 failures. But they've trained their mind to know like failing is safe. And like, there's even like, I think the Spotify was saying or even it was Apple, they said they have a whole entire division and money allocated to failing and experiments. That's part of their like, success. So like, but again, evidence building, they gave themselves evidence to know that failing is safe, which it is, which we're not taught that in school, right? Like at least, and I used to be a teacher, is like, oh, you got an A or you got a, C or an F.
And you're going to have to repeat
exactly.
It's like crazy.
Yeah. And then the testing is like, and like when I was trained to become a teacher, I had to read this book by Angela Duckworth, and it was like talking about the most successful trait that a student has that will make them successful through life. It's not good grades. It's not perfect attendance. It's not your attitude. It's grit. It's resilience. It's being able to fail and get back up and fail and get back up. If you have grit, if you have resilience, just like with those entrepreneurs, you go far.
They don't teach you that.
Exactly. And so again, with you were saying about the cultural and the society conditioning, it's not just like us, it's the schooling. It's so many things of like failing that's another thing that I'm still working on.
I think they should change the word.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in school age children.
Yeah.
It should be try a little harder.
Yeah.
You did a great job. Could have done better. Try a little harder.
Or like, why did you not do well? What part of it? Like, why? Like,
what happened to you?
Yeah, exactly.
How can I help support it?
Yeah.
Not fail.
Yeah. I've even changed the dialogue in my head. I call them experiments. So it's a softer language. But again, it's the dialogue you have with yourself. It's the dialogue then you can say to other people like, oh, you didn't fail. So you did a little experiment. And like, and I agree with you 100%. Again, from being a teacher, I look back and I was like,
because it's true. I think throughout my schooling, I was petrified of failing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was the first thing that I learned as a young, impressionable primary
Little
child.
little human.
Don't fail. Don't fail.
Yeah.
Get it right. Don't fail.
Yeah.
You know, failing is the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And you're telling me entrepreneurs, they're like, they master failure.
Yeah. They are
Like the failing is like they're bouncing to go even higher.
exactly. They always say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any successful entrepreneur, they'll tell you. And but again, my mind needed evidence. So when I started listening to these things about entrepreneurs and they gave me that, and I was like, huh. And also like, I've got this thing of like, oh, time's running out. The most successful entrepreneurs are 45 years old. Like, chill. I'm like, chill. Of course, there are it's those unicorns that then get sensationalized and like, oh yes, 25 years old, this tech startup, and he's like a millionaire. Yeah, that happens and good for them. And whatever you did, amazing for you. But like, that's not the norm. And like, they romanticize it and they glamorize it and they sensationalize it.
Sexy.
Right. Yeah.
No one wants to know that the poor man who's working night and day, or the woman trying to do something, coming up with ideas, and it keeps getting setbacks and then back up again. Everybody wants to see fast forward to the end.
Yeah. That's what we see on social media, right? That's what we see. We don't see all of those things. And like, so
constant, like, this dialogue. Why am I doing that? Again, I'm always going to only speak for myself.
Yeah.
There are moments where I keep thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I have a job. I've got a full-time job. I've got kids.
Yeah.
I've got a podcast. Well, is it that good? Is it not good? What's the metric?
Yeah.
How do I know it's successful? How do I know? And then something nice happens. Yeah. And then I get that little validation.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, okay, I'll keep going. But I would say, like you said, that 80 whatever percent of the time,
70, 80%.
80%, quite negative.
Yeah. That's our autopilot. That's our default. Yeah.
And I'm always thinking, it could be better. It could be better. Why am I not doing it? I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something I could. But then I'm also like, okay, I'm doing what I can.
Yeah.
I'm doing that 1%. And this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times you also have the other side of the coin, where it's, where does motivation and drive come in?
Yeah.
How do you get people to overcome these beliefs and not settle?
Yeah.
We're okay. Yes, we're doing that 1%. Is that the way forward?
Mm-hmm.
Should we be pushing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm at a point where, what is a healthy way to move forward in life?
I think that's for everyone, an individual to decide.
Yeah.
Because again, that comparison of like, for my 1% would look different from someone else's 1%. My 1% is like going and spending time. Some people's 1% is getting out of bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, again, that's coming back to that comparison. And like, the thing where you're like, oh, when is it unhealthy, is when you start to notice like there is no growth. There is no, you're finding yourself in these patterns, these self-sabotaging patterns. You're finding yourself in coping mechanisms. You're finding yourself, and again, not that there's anything wrong with a good brunch. I love a good brunch, but every weekend you're just getting wasted and having brunch and like nothing else is moving forward. You have like, trust me, you have a stack of problems looking in your face. And I always think about myself in the past of like, I used to struggle a lot with debt and money, and like this was something I would just brush under the rug. And like today, it's all gone. I've taken care, so that's good. But there was this point where I was just like I moved to Dubai as a teacher, and I was just like living my best life on a teacher salary brunch, but not really. That's not really. You're not making the Kardashian money to live that Kardashian life in Dubai. But yeah, but that's when again the build up, and then my body was like, no. This is not okay. The panic attacks came, this came. And like, I hate to say this, but your body will tell you. Your body will tell you something's wrong, something's not happening. And so for me, it was like coping mechanism, debt, drinking, partying, brunching, not facing things that I hadn't processed in my 20s. And then my body is like, wake up, something's wrong. Wake up, something's wrong. So like, your body will tell you. If you're not taking care of it, if you're, staying stagnant, if you're stuck in patterns, if you're relying too much on your coping mechanisms, your distractions, your body, your health, my gut, my everything. So it's honestly, for me, it's your body.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I've started to incorporate more in my work is the body work, somatics. It's like, how is my body feeling? And like in my 20s, I also had an eating disorder. So like, like society wise, I looked great, But man, inside I was tired all the time. I had gut issues. My hair was falling out. I had acne. And now today I'm like not as thin as I used to be, but like, man, I can do a deadlift. I can do all these cool poses in yoga. My body feels good. Like, thank you. But again, like the way that my body, I don't trust my mind as much. I trust my body because my body tells me. Like when I'm tired, like we were talking about when I was sick, I was like, oof, rest. My mind was going like, oh, you have all these clients, you need to do this. Oh, you have these things, this thing, you need to buy stop right. You need to book in that meeting. Yeah. My body said no. And I listened. And now that's another massive difference between who I was before. My body was telling me no. Like I told you, I thought my panic attacks came out of nowhere. My body was telling me. I wasn't listening. So I think, yeah, with that, it's your body will tell you. Your body will tell you when it's too much. And again, really serious health issues. It's not about like, yeah, okay, you go to the gym and you're sore the next day. Yeah, that's pain. I'm not talking about that. Like that's a good pain. Yeah, that's a good pain. It's like you're getting sick, you're having gut issues, especially like your, acne, different types of things, panic attacks, like low energy, you're sleeping or you're not sleeping. Like these are all things to look at where your body is telling you like, you stop. You need to do something else. Yeah.
You touched on coping mechanisms. Well, I mean, what does that look like?
Like mine was drinking and shopping. So and I also another big one is smoking, where I see a lot. It's basically or doom scrolling. It's a distraction. There's doom scrolling, just going on Instagram. Oh, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. You know what I mean? But it's basically a way for you to distract yourself from feeling neither an unprocessed emotion or trauma, maybe anxiety, maybe it's depression, maybe it's grief and anger, all of these heavy emotions. So instead of letting yourself feel that, right, for me, like it was the debt that was overwhelming, gave me anxiety, gave me guilt. I had a lot of guilt about my debt. So what did I do? I drank. I would shop, like necessarily, then go to more but that was my coping mechanism. But again, and it temporarily distracts you, right? And they always say like when I was shopping, like again, like I still shop. So it sounds like I don't shop. So that sounds like I'm like having panic attacks right now, thinking like, oh my God, I just bought so much. No, I still shop, but like the way that I used to before, now it's more, especially now, it's like literally Christmas just passed. So like I think some future damage. But that's not all I want to talk about. Shopping where you have to get into debt, that's not healthy. Yeah.
It's almost like, your disassociation with the reality of the fact that debt is a real thing.
Yeah.
But it don't want to be debt.
But the thing I wasn't tackling was the guilt with the debt. It was the emotion tied to the debt.
Where did that come from? Just out of curiosity. Yeah. I mean, is it
the guilt or the debt?
The debt, the guilt. I mean, it was just
so the first layer of debt came from in America, we have student loans. So massive student loans. And then moving out, living by myself and like moving from the US. I lived in the US, Texas, Spain, all these moving expenses. Then moving out to the UAE, credit card. And then when I came here to the UAE as a teacher, they gave me another credit card. It's like free money. So it was like,
but it's not
free money. And so again, there was the guilt. And then there was like, every time I looked at the debt, I was like, more guilt. But instead of like, oh, make a plan, let me do this things, it was like, let me distract myself with going out. So that's a coping mechanism of like distracting myself. I get a little ping when I buy something. We do when you shop.
It's like when you're this dopamine.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Gamified and even the virtual basket and the checking out and
or I found on Instagram and this girl has this, and again, that's where the perfectionism came out and the people pleasing. Like this girl had like this cute outfit. I was like, oh, I need that cute outfit for brunch. I can't repeat outfits, right? Like that's not a lot. I'm a teacher. Like, what are you? Like, I'm not Kim Kardashian where I need to be photographed every, like, like I'm like putting, again, the comparison, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the imposter syndrome. If I want to look this way, and also tackled into like dating of like, oh, if I want to find a partner, I need to look a certain way and I need to have 1, 2, 3. And like, again, instead of addressing the guilt from the debt and the not good enough feeling from the perfectionism and the people pleasing that I came out, it was all these coping mechanisms. And all the coping mechanisms, there's a dopamine hit. When you go on Instagram, you get a ping, dopamine. For shopping, ping. Nicotine, smoking, ping. Alcohol, another ping.
Yeah.
So again, you're training your brain like, oh, feel good emotion when I do this. Yeah, I don't want to like deal with this like heavy emotion, like the guilt, and I want to have fun. And the more you feed your mind, the more it gets like accustomed to it. So the more I did that, I was like, so that also attributed to like that breakout, that burnout, that panic attack, because I was holding all of this unprocessed guilt around the debt. And instead of facing it, I was like,
distractions.
But then my body was like, no, time to face the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But I'm great.
guilt is such a weird feeling as well. It's the most uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to do with it. I don't think any one of us really knows how to process guilt. And so many people say it's unnecessary, but I find it is a little bit necessary at times. Like the majority of I don't know if it stems from the amygdala or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's a survival thing.
Yeah.
Or a way to put you on the right track when you've done something potentially quote unquote wrong. I don't know.
No, like all of our emotions are important and valid. They're the fun ones, they're the heavy ones, I like to call it. But guilt especially, it's like they're so heavy. But for me, it's you have to, every emotion, you just have to sit with it. Recognize to say with it. You have to feel it.
I've been doing this with my boys.
Yeah.
So what would happen is, especially around guilt,
Yeah.
I was noticing them. So they are now again 4 and 7. The level as to which that they wrestle has become now it's a sport, and MMA.
Yeah.
Like it's on steroids at my house. Like it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They have it. I've heard it's a developmental
Yeah.
thing. That's what boys should be doing. They're tactile, and you shouldn't interfere.
Yeah.
But if you don't, somebody's going to get hurt, kind of thing. And one does get hurt. The other one starts to get really like a bit defensive and angry that person got hurt. And I'm like, I think that's guilt. It's guilt.
Yep.
So I'd say, Laith, what you're feeling now is guilty because your brother got hurt. And you didn't mean to do it, but you feel guilty that you hurt him.
Yeah.
So let's just take a deep breath and let me help you make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
Because I noticed he was acting really strange when I hurt his brother. And I'm like, why are you getting upset?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, yeah, but he did this and that. I'm like, it's fine. You just feel guilty right now. And I would be the same with Zane.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't really know how to kind of navigate it until I said, that's guilt. Yeah. You're feeling guilty right now. So stop for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about it and you will feel instantly better.
I mean, if at 4 and 7 they can identify, like unpack guilt, that's disaster.
I mean, I just
That's disaster.
my husband gets a little bit more involved with the rough play. I'm just sitting in the corner, like cringing at the sight because I just can't. That's a woman thing. I don't like watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I'm always nearby. So when something happens, it's always like run and cry to mommy.
Yeah.
And that's our roles at the moment. So when I kind of watch them do their thing and I can see the weirdness come out.
Yeah.
That's stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thing.
And as humans, we have like family, we have tribe, we have community. It's important for us. So like, we don't want to hurt other humans, right? So then the guilt comes up. So again, everything is to our survival. We are not, which is what happens today, is like, we're not meant to live in isolation, right? Like, and again, today with like social media, we think we're so connected. We're actually so disconnected with Deliveroo, with everything. Like, and like, look, I'm guilty too. Like I can go a whole day without talking to someone because I've Deliverooed this. I've messaged on Instagram and it's talking, but it's not connected.
But you all, I mean, in the sense that you have clients, you have people, you've got family, you've got a husband. After a while, also, I feel like my verbal quota, like by 7:30, I'm done.
Oh, yes. Definitely. At that point, no, both my husband and I would be like, look, half an hour decompress. Yeah, speak to me.
Yeah.
And we have this space for each other because,
a little bit of a give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Before I forget, in terms of, again, I'm going to sort of circle you back because I think a lot of people would resonate with perfectionism and people pleasing and imposter syndrome. Do you think it's almost like we as humans are on a spectrum of these things? Do you think there is a degree of goodness that comes from having a bit of imposter syndrome, a bit of perfection, a bit of people pleasing? Doesn't have to be the full range of it. I mean, I guess what I want to say, where's the red line?
Yeah.
Where do you, I mean, those particular traits, where is it that you would say, okay, no, stop?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, we all have a bit of this. And like, it's like I was saying earlier, they're there to protect us. They think they're protecting us. They think that they're protecting us from danger. So I used to villainize them a lot, but and even with shadow work, it's all about, it sounds dark, it sounds scary, heavy emotions, but every single dark side just needs love and acknowledgement. So like talking to them and like acknowledging them, they're there to protect us. So again, I don't want to, I know it's not fun, it feels bad, but we need to know that they're supposed to be our protectors. And again, when it becomes red line, it's when you start to like I was sharing, with like the coping mechanisms become too much. When you're like, oh my God, I keep self-sabotaging. It could be in relationship, it could be work.
You're doing
it could be
something
this.
at your detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it is a self-sabotage. And again, it's like, but that's another thing is like everyone's threshold is different. Like what I can hold, what you can hold, what someone else can hold, like it's different. But it's the more that you spend time with yourself and again, understanding, oh, this is my edge. This is my edge. This is my maximum. Because there be like, I'm sure even for you, sometimes you tell people, oh, I'm doing this. And like when my batteries are charged, like I literally, not to brag, but I'm like superwoman and I feel good. And like, but if I were to tell that to my parents, they'd just be like overwhelmed. But again, that's my threshold. That's my thing. And I've understood this. But the more, so it comes back to you. It's like a getting to know yourself. Like, what is my threshold? What can I hold? What is too much? When do I hold this? When do I release?
Yeah, it's that point where you start to go into the coping mechanism, like circle back and think, what was that? What pushed you to that point?
Yeah. And again, and I'm not perfect. I was still like, you'll see me reach for the phone or reach for this. And then I'm like, but now I've got that awareness of like, ooh, is it a coping? If you're asking yourself, is this a coping mechanism? You're good. You're in the green. If you're asking yourself these questions, if you're taking a pause before you act, that's a good sign. You're in that healthy thing. Again, you're never going to be perfect, but you got to just be better than yesterday. You got to be better than before. And that's, again, but in like 1%, not like 50, 60, 70. But yeah.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Is that something that needs to be a part of your, I guess, daily, I don't know, the part of your daily life in order for you to kind of push away certain negative beliefs or limiting beliefs?
So when I was dealing with that debt, like I said, guilt was the biggest thing. And so I was reading all these books on debt and like abundance and thing. Honestly, the biggest thing that helped me overcome that debt was sitting weekends with myself. I still have, I call it my abundance notebook, but it's my forgiveness notebook. I sat down and I wrote every single thing that I was mad at myself for.
At yourself?
Yes.
Is it also forgiving other people?
Yes, but it's always you first. Because when you forgive yourself, other people, it's
irrelevant.
It becomes irrelevant. And it's a book, like it's this thick of all the things that I had to, and I literally, and in Hawaii, there's this, I think it's getting more known now, ho'oponopono, which is like a forgiveness practice that they say in Hawaii. And it's literally like, I love you, I forgive you, and I release you. And that has been one of the biggest game-changing things when it came to my guilt. And so if you want to make it a daily practice, I'm all for it. There was a period though, every weekend I sat with my notebook and I did this. Again, that helped me deal with the guilt attached to my debt. And like, I don't know what happened. I mean, I know what happened. Like I believe in all the universe and the boo-boo stuff, but just stuff started to clear. Like I started to like get, like obviously my business things came in, so I was able to pay that debt. But until I did that, like forgiveness notebook practice, like there was no way I could face my guilt or my debt. So forgiveness, honestly, forgiveness and gratitude, like they're so, especially gratitude, I know it's so overrated, but honestly, every day, it's the most basic thing of like, just like you take a breath, like I would say with gratitude. So forgiveness is powerful.
Look, I'm with you. I'm Muslim. So for me, the word alhamdulillah is something that we literally use almost in every sentence. And it's just basically thank goodness or thank God.
Yeah.
And that's that little bit of reminder, just that little gratitude. Like, again, that sort of ties into how much does spirituality play in this sort of, I guess, realm.
So I believe in all the things, and I used to be the most anti-spiritual person. So again, I was never grown up like this. I was raised super Catholic and super, they love the guilt. They love the guilt in the Catholic world. But since I started focusing on things like energetics and abundance and things like that, which I think it's the inner work first and then the outer stuff. Like, I don't want to be, but it feels like magic. The more I did this inner work of like releasing that guilt, the more like I would get more clients, business would do better. The more that like I would sit with my heavy emotions, shadow work, and remove the things, because in, like spiritual, it's like energetics. It's like when you have these stuck heavy emotions, you're attracting those things, again, subconsciously. Yeah. But when you release these and you start to have like abundance, gratitude that you're holding, then you start to attract this. And it's very much like an energetic in your energy. And like, look, I know it's spiritual, but like, they say that your vibe attracts your tribe. You walk into a room, you feel the energy.
Well, I mean, we are energetic human beings. I mean, we are electrically charged.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's not going to go into thin air. That definitely, there is a transfer. And I've been in a room where energetically I feel not right.
See, yeah.
And
Yeah.
everything just feels off. And
Yeah.
I'm tired and drained
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I've been in rooms where I just feel so charged and feeling so good. And there is this really lovely vibe, whatever that vibe is. So there is definitely something. And I know that there is. I mean, obviously, there's the whole, there's a whole industry.
Yeah,
behind it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But I mean, it is definitely there. And it's definitely kind of tapping into that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, with that, it's the abundance, it's safety. That's what creates like you're able to attract things easily. And this is another limiting belief that I had. It was like, in order to be successful, I need to work super hard and build and like burn myself out. That was a belief. Now I like,
no, the burnout badge. Like,
yeah,
everybody.
Yeah,
like no,
yeah,
that's not the way.
That was an old belief. New program has entered. I attract with ease. I work smart, not hard. Like. But again, that came from so much internal work. Of course, again, I'm not just sitting at home. Like, I'm also showing up on it, doing the thing. So
it's trying to find that balance between acknowledging who you are as a human being, and meeting your whatever it is that gives you self-actualization.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the magic happens. To find that little spot where you're not sitting burning the candle at both ends, but also you're not just waiting for the universe to give you something on a platter.
Exactly.
It's just one of those things. This, for me, if I could give any child of mine advice, it would be find that point where you're not killing yourself to get to somewhere, but you're also not sitting around doing nothing.
Agree.
So it's just trying to tap into something that's going to make you happy and whole. And productive member of society that gives value in places. I mean, why are we here ultimately? Again, I keep listening to these podcasts and they were saying that all of these, the top % of the billionaires want to find what's going, or, sort of take their resources and find life on other parts of, the universe and different planets. Whereas like, why don't you concentrate here?
Yeah. I'm like, why?
We're here. Like, we're here. Instead of tearing it apart. And to find life in other planets. Let's do it here. Let's find ways to kind of, put human beings on the earth that is actually going to have positive value. To keep it around from error. And I think that's ultimately in my mind. That's what I would want.
I hear you. So like, how do we take care of ourselves better? How do we take care of the earth better? Like, dive so with you.
And it's just, it doesn't go with burnout because you're going to be nobody.
No.
At that point.
No.
Sitting around doing nothing. It's just obviously not going to be helpful.
No.
It's just trying to, I think, work mindfully.
And the word balance, I know you spoke about it, which I agree is like, find your balance, but balance doesn't look at 50-50. Like, balance looks like it moves. And I also say balance can be seasons. You have a season of winter, you have a spring, you have a summer, you have a fall. That's also what balance can be. It doesn't mean like, oh, I do 50-50 every day. So like, that's also something like what you're saying is like, I work hard, but I also do the inner work and I enjoy life. Like,
it's beautiful.
Life is
beautiful. I mean, just look around, that's again a different topic for another day. But so let's say, for example, somebody listening to this and does the work. As a human being, are we able to eliminate all limiting beliefs?
No, there is no magical healing point where everything is amazing. It's no pill. It's just, how do I deal with it better? How do I get the tools, the practices? But that's it. And also a thing about healing is like, I think it's all the good things. Healing is not that. Healing is being able to sit with both the heavy grief and guilt and the joy and the gratitude. When you allow yourself to go on both spectrums, you're allowing yourself to expand. That's true healing. It's not, I know we love the good stuff, especially in the spiritual world. They're like positive vibes, positive affirmations. Like, yeah, we like it, but this is also part of us as human experience. And when you're able to hold both, that's I don't like to say healed, but that's where you know you're healed, is you allow yourself to hold both. You allow yourself to feel both. You don't see the grief and the guilt and like, yeah, you're like, oh, what do you need? How can I sit with you? That is definitely a sign of like you're healing or you've healed and stuff.
Do you know, honestly, that's actually really important because, I mean, it's not like we have those emotions and feelings. So obviously they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
You can't disregard them.
Yeah.
And but no, you just don't exist. So I'm going to do this.
Exactly.
Pretend like you're not there.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like
coping mechanisms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's again super hard.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
And I think people will spend their whole lives trying to.
Yeah. It's a lifelong.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong.
Do you ever stop? Do you think?
No.
No.
You take breaks though. I take breaks. It's a lot of work and sometimes you take breaks because you just want to enjoy life. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Lighten the
load
a little bit. Yeah.
It gets heavy. So yeah.
That was, again, sort of like your tools for effectively breaking these cycles without getting into coping mechanisms. Like, what would you say is your overarching, the moment you have a limiting belief and you're about to do something and your brain's telling you, nope, don't do it. Don't do it. You're not good enough. Or don't do it. You've got no experience. Or you shouldn't be making that decision. You're not qualified.
Yeah.
Or just as a parent, oh, you probably have done that wrong. You've just really dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah.
What would be something that the first thing that you would say to a client with these?
And it's always basics. It's come back to the body. They'll come back to the body because the mind will take you on a spiral. Your body will tell you what it needs. And like I always still, to this day, hand on heart, hand on stomach, deep belly breathes and like come back to your body and asking your body, what is it feeling? And that's the thing that you have to learn is like, ooh, where do you feel the anxiety? And like one of the times I had this session with a client, she's like, what does anxiety feel like? She was like, huh? And then she's like, oh, it feels like bees in my chest. And I was like, that's a great thing. So now when she feels the anxiety, she's like, where do I feel it? Oh, bees in my chest. That's my anxiety. So she'll literally put her hand there and she'll like exhale and like the bees are going out. Or another place we hold it is our stomach. What do you feel? Oh, I feel a pit in my stomach. And then I ask them, what does it look like? Oh, a dark, icky ball. And then you just allow yourself to, when you visualize it too, that also connects to the subconscious. And then you can exhale it. And then another one is our throat. So these are kind of where we store these heavy emotions.
Yeah. See, for me, it's more throat, and like I always find that my mouth gets super dry, and like it's almost like somebody got their hands around my throat.
Yeah.
Or my neck.
Yeah.
That's where I feel it.
Yeah.
Most. I feel like I can't get words out properly. And that's when I'm anxious. Nervousness. I mean, obviously standing on a stage talking to 200 people, you get a bit nervous, and I think that's a normal thing.
That is.
But no, I'm talking about specific weird anxiety.
Yeah.
Like anxiety I had postnatal anxiety with my second, and it was just horrendous. And I remember this feeling of constant impending doom, and it stemmed from so much fear. It must have been sort of low current fear because it was born in COVID, and I keep thinking,
but COVID, and everyone was living in fear in COVID. Everywhere was, there was so much fear in COVID. Everyone was existing. So obviously that could not just be yours, but
and I couldn't get a handle, and every time I could feel this part sort of getting tighter, and then I wasn't able to kind of articulate what was going through my mind.
So sometimes you can't, and that's why I always ask them to visualize it. And when it comes to this, we only need to feel our emotions for 3 to 4 minutes for it to be processed, to be healed. So it's not like I'm going to tell you like, oh, this happens. And like if you can take 20 minutes, 30, go for it. But if you can take 5-10 minutes to do that, that is how your mind is, especially anxiety, is like thinking about worst case scenario in the future. Present, mindfulness, body, here. You need to come here. So your mind is over there. You need to bring your mind back here and with your body. And because anxiety is gonna, like, again, there's a fear that there's something dangerous happening, right? Whenever we're in danger, the body starts pumping cortisol and it starts pumping adrenaline. So like you need to physically do something because there is physical things happening in your cortisol. I call it stress juices pumping. So man, when people tell me calm down, I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't.
Just calm down.
No, that's okay. Let me press the button.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know.
You got me for me. Like, you need to do something physical to stop the cortisol, to stop the adrenaline. So that's why I say come back to the body. Breathe find that area. If you can't describe it, because sometimes I can't visualize it moving the throat, wherever it is. Again, it's a physical thing that you need to process because that's what's happening in the cortisol and the stress juice. So breathing, finding it in your body, visualizing it as whatever, a color, a thing, exhaling it out, going for a walk, like shaking is another thing.
I ran a lot. I do. I run a lot. I think, I mean, it's not really great for my knees and things like that, but I've been running for a really long time, and
Yeah.
I am quite, sort of wound up a bit tight, and it really helps.
Yeah, we're releasing all.
Yeah, and the moment I can feel it, like if I don't like anxiety and at night, because obviously I'm not going to go put my trainers on and do a lap.
Oh, yeah.
But if I am in a place where I'm uncomfortable,
Yeah.
the next morning, all I do is just go for a run.
Mhm.
And it does, it helps massively.
And like what you're, so yeah, it's come out to that body, and like even the nervousness. Like the other day, I remember I got to be on TV for the first time. It was so cool.
How that hurt.
Yeah, and I was thank you. I was nervous, and then they were asking me about these things, and they're like, "Oh, how often do you do this?" And I was like, "I was doing it 5 minutes ago before I came on here. I was literally putting my hand on my heart, on my stomach, because I was nervous, and I have no shame, no problem saying, and I was regulating my nervous system before I came on. So you can do it however you want, like as much as you want, and it's free, and you have it, and it makes you feel better.
I've got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one is, in your line of work and the clients that you see, what are the very, very common and typical limiting beliefs that you hear?
Yeah, it's back to kind of like what the perfection. You know what? You're not good enough. That's it. You're not good enough, and you're not safe. And what has been recently coming up with my clients is it's not safe for me to be seen, and it's not safe to be heard. And I work a lot with women. I work with men too, but mostly women. And so a lot of my clients think they have confidence issues. But when I get down to it, it's like, no, you don't feel safe to be seen. Like they struggle with receiving compliments. And when someone compliments you, they're looking at you. So they see you. And that makes them feel uncomfortable. So that is, especially in the past few months, that's been coming up a lot. Like women don't feel safe to be seen, or don't feel safe to be heard. So that we're working towards reprogramming our body that it's okay to be heard. It's okay to be seen. And that's also something that I struggled with, right? Like,
do you not think, again, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking the sort of historical role of a woman.
Yeah.
And obviously no one wants to think about that, because to be honest, it's just, it's the sad truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that has happened from the dawn of day, sort of quieting women,
Mm-hmm.
hiding women.
Yeah.
So that they're not seen, not heard.
Yeah.
Do you think that goes, again, generationally?
Absolutely. This is a massive generational, like even when I sat with myself and these things, I could feel it. Like it's, you see.
Yeah, because I mean now, sorry, again, I interrupt you. There's, now you're obviously moving into a different era, I guess, and women are superseding their male counterpart.
Yeah.
And you can see that whether that's university, college graduates, jobs, potential positions.
Yeah.
Women are, quote unquote, winning the race.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that it's just only because of having conversations like this, realizing, why am I feeling a certain way, that I'm not heard?
Yeah.
I'm scared to be heard.
Yeah.
Scared to be seen.
Yes.
You've shrunken that person down, and with a little bit of work, you can sort of like expand out.
Absolutely.
And really put yourself forward and do incredible things.
Absolutely. And we have been raised in a patriarchal world where, like, things are built in a way so that a man can be more successful, again, in money terms. And like, even if you think of us women as our cycles, like every month we go through a cycle where our moods and energy levels go up because of our hormones. Men, they have testosterone, they have steady energy. We give birth, so then we need to take a step back, but like everything is about productivity, go all the time. Our bodies are not built for that. But then again, so it's coming, from a bigger thing of like this. And so, yeah, it's not, the world is not make us women feel like it's safe to be seen and heard. But with you, like you said, these conversations, these challenging these beliefs, we now, like you said, we hold the power. We get to shift. We make an impact on the world. We're not just sitting at home and like, accepting it. We're going out. We're saying, we're having these conversations. So absolutely, we're challenging. It wasn't, and it still doesn't feel safe but we're changing that. And I see it and I feel it. And what you said is like, we were always taught to shrink ourselves. We are not. We are expanding. We are growing.
Yeah.
And I always tell other women, like, when you see another woman in her light, cheer her on. I know that reaction and the comparison is like, oh, compare myself. No, if she is taking up space, she is letting you know it's safe for you to be seen. And when you see another woman,
Well, are you kind of really emotional? But it's the truth.
yeah,
It's the truth. Yeah, it's just allowing that space, giving the space, cheering on, and,
Yeah.
and really being there
yeah.
and appreciating it.
Yeah.
Because men get that all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I don't mean to be like
No, exactly. I love men and I love men. I love them too. Yeah, I got them to take. It's not a fight.
no,
Yeah.
but it's almost like let's be fair here. It's a level playing field. I don't want to live in a patriarchal
Yeah.
society.
It's not even good for men.
No,
They're so lonely. The suicide rates in the US are going up because they're their war
enemy.
Yeah, they're forced to live in it. So it's not good for us or
Something's not working.
it's not.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of a shift
Yeah.
to again challenge that, because again we can't keep going on like this.
Yeah.
So just have more conversations like these.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then of course, if you are wanting to obviously, have the person who's listening and is thinking to themselves, okay, what can I do? How, and feels sort of trapped in their limiting beliefs. What would be your biggest today action? What would you say to them to do? Let's say they finished listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm reffed up. I need to go and do X.
Yeah, they're not gonna like it. So it's so uncomfortable the first time you do it.
No, but it's important.
I would tell them to sit with it.
Yeah.
I would tell them to get to know that inner critic and inside and out. And it's so uncomfortable and we don't like it. But that's it. Sit with it. Like I told you, mine was every weekend I had that guilt journaling with my debt and I had to sit with it.
Talk to the Punisher.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, that's where the guilt came. Because again, Punisher, that was guilt. Like, so it's sit with it. Sit with it, journal it, understand it, listen to it. Again, not here, but like in where you put it somewhere, where it lives in another, like separating it from yourself. But it would be sit with it. Go and sit. What does it have to say? And after you ask it what it has to say, you always ask, what do you need? And honestly, every time it's like love. I need rest. Because I do this with my clients all the time. And I always ask, what does your inner critic need? What does your shadow need? Love, patience, kindness.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah, patience, kindness.
But you need to listen.
Just be quite gentle
Yeah.
with whatever I'm vulnerable to.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I always need.
You need to listen to it, acknowledge it, and then ask it what it needs and give it to them. Give it kindness, give it safety. But so mine is safety. It needs to be safe. I need to feel safe. My Punisher, my petty patty, it's just like constantly I need reassurance that I'm safe. Before it was forgiveness for the guilt. And again, it will change. And the more you get to know them, the more you'll understand the dial. And like now it's like 30 seconds or a minute in my head. I'm like, oof, what do you need to feel safe? I need a breath. I need a breath. You get so much better at it the more you talk to it lovingly and kindly. So yeah, the first few times it's uncomfortable. I'm like, over there, go sit with it. It's not okay. I'd be like, forget this. What else?
I have to ask, and this is my last question. I'm sorry, I've kept you here for.
No, I've slept.
But in the world of manifesting and affirmations and visualization, I mean, you're smiling.
I have a little, so
Is there a part to play?
yeah, so I don't like positive affirmations. I think they're very forceful. I struggled with them. But what I have is something else called thought ladders. So this is what, when I was struggling with, again, it was like I hated my body. So I'm just like, I hate my body. So then the positive affirmation would be like, go look in the mirror and say, I love you. You're beautiful. When I did that, it felt disgusting
and cringy.
and it didn't work. So now I had to go from, instead of I hate myself to I love myself, which is huge, I had to go, I am grateful that I have 2 arms and 2 legs. And this is what I called thought ladders. So instead of going into positive affirmations, you go into a thought ladder. And when you say the thought ladder, you have to believe it, feel it at least 80% or 100. So when I'm looking at the mirror and I'm saying, I'm grateful, I have 2 arms and 2 legs that work, that's 100%.
You are grateful.
Yeah, I am grateful.
Yeah.
So instead of positive affirmations, thought ladders. That's my biggest thing is like, whatever. Like they feel so forced. And when you create thought ladders, you build towards that. And honestly, today there are some days I look at my body, I'm like, I don't fucking like you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
I don't like you. And then I'm like, but I'm grateful that I have you and you're healthy. So again, replacing it with a thought ladder. So for positive affirmations, I'm like thought ladder. But for visualizations, another thing is our mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality.
okay.
So with that, I always tell my clients, brainwash yourself into believing like, again, but it has to feel like a believable thing.
Yeah.
Right? It can't be like, oh, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have 1 million subscribers, right? It needs to feel like, again, creating a thought ladder to where you start to expand what feels normal for you. So we all have this kind of like, I don't know, like container of like how much happiness, how much joy, how much love we can hold, right? And greatness. And even with the healing, it's about how can I expand more? And I tell you in the last 2-3 years, this sounds really sad, but I feel joy for the first time in my life versus the last time I felt joy was when I was a kid. But like for a lot of my life, if you were, I was like, what's joy? Like it's such, but only in the last 2 years have I actually understood what joy feels like. And it sounds sad, but it's so true. But that's because I was expanding. Also, when you're healing, I'm expanding my capacity to feel more goodness. So before it was just like, I feel I was always in survival mode. That's why I never felt joy. But the more I've practiced gratitude, the more I practice this, now I feel joy, and I feel joy from the stupidest little things, like from walking down the street and like seeing a bird fly. And it's like the weather is good. For me to feel happiness or joy before, I needed like a new outfit. I needed this, which look, those things do bring me joy.
Spark joy.
They do spark joy, nothing against that. A new bag, a new
some diamonds.
no, exactly. And again, they still spark joy, but now I feel joy with the littlest like, oh, I had the best matcha latte the other day. And I was like, this is dog.
Before I came here, like I said, I went through, what we were going to talk about, had an almond latte at breakfast. I was half an hour, it was just me. Felt a tremendous amount of joy.
That's another sign of life.
But did I think that I was joyful at the time? Now, looking back in retrospect, I was quite happy.
See, that's another thing. When you feel it,
go into it.
Sit in it. Yeah. Bathe in it for a few minutes. Be like, this is joy.
This is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing of like, with all the work. It's not just, oh, okay, I've healed and processed all the trauma. Now you get to feel more good things and more good things more. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's another thing I think I didn't realize until I went. I was like, I never felt joy. This is what joy feels like.
Well, I'm really happy.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've got a last question. Yeah, this is just like a thing that just came into my mind. Fear.
Yeah.
Does fear play a part? I mean, I find fear, you mentioned that obviously this is a ancient old.
Yeah.
Is it a coping mechanism?
I mean, fear is our thinking that there's danger, right? Yeah. So when we see fear, there's danger. That's our imagining it. So again, not every time you can do this, I say run towards it. Run towards it because it could be, but again, that's a big one. You're taking an opportunity. Again, this is maybe when you're further down the line, not when you're first getting into it. That's an opportunity. Now I see fear as an opportunity for me to expand or an opportunity for me to grow. Again, I don't like run towards it like what I kind of said, but I like, oh, what is this fear? What is the danger that I'm feeling? Is it real? I question it, right? And so like, for example, like, last year I launched my group coaching program. So I was always with one-on-ones and then group coaching program. So it's bigger, it's different, and da-da-da-da. Fear, danger, out like insane. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I was like, why? This. And look, I had a certain goal. I didn't hit the goal, but I did it. And so sometimes it's just about doing the thing. And so again, you start to get comfortable with the fear. Like with the entrepreneurs, they see fear, they see risk, they see failure. They're like, all right, let's go, because I'm going to get so. And if I didn't launch that program and I didn't get to support these, like I look back now and I'm like, that would have been horrible. That would have been horrible if I let my fear take over that thing and not launch it.
Essentially fear of failure.
Yeah, it was fear or failure. Like, oh, I have to get, yeah. But I'm so glad I did it. And I always say after you do the things, check in how you feel.
Yeah.
Like there's so many examples. I was afraid of the gym. right? I used to walk into the gym. I know it's so weird because I do yoga and I can walk into a yoga studio, no problem. But if I go into a gym, like overwhelm, overload, I joined a weightlifting program for women. And now like I walk into a gym and there's nothing.
It's that level of discomfort. I find fear, obviously, fear is, oh my God, on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Everybody has some sort of manifestation of fear
Yeah.
in every capacity
Yeah.
of life. I know for me, my ultimate fear is anything to do with my loved ones. That is, where is that coming from? I don't know. I actually do know.
The mother.
So, no, my parents are Gulf War survivors. So they moved from Iraq to, and I always played this narrative.
Yeah.
They were fearful.
Yeah.
We stuck together.
Yeah.
Something externally happened to their life, which turned their life upside down.
Yeah.
And then we have to, again, huddle together to kind of move into a place. Now we are safe.
Yeah.
But there is fear.
Yeah.
There is an undercurrent of protect. Don't cross the street. Like, now my 7-year-old, I'm like, oh my God, the street, what? Look, left. And he's like, Mom, I know. I'm like, no, wait, Hellfire. It's overbearing.
Yeah.
So it's that.
Yeah.
I can see it coming out. I see it in my mom and my dad
as
we were growing up. Fearful.
Yeah.
And it is, I know it came from so much love to protect, but it becomes, guys, I got this.
Yeah, I'm safe.
I'm safe.
We're safe.
But now with my own children, the fear plagues me.
Yeah.
That's where I know I need work, because that fear I'm unable to de-escalate sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think, and then all of a sudden the fear manifests into, these like, oh my God, what if this happens? Or
anxiety.
The anxiety. Yep. And we can't do that. What if that happens?
Yeah.
The other day, somebody told me a story, and it was about their child getting lost somewhere in East Asia or something like that. And I was like, we can't go there. We can't go there, guys.
Yeah.
Because the kids might get lost. What?
Yeah.
That's come on.
Yeah.
I mean, even as a logical, no.
Yeah.
It's not about that. I've literally stopped my family from vacationing in this beautiful place because of fear of something potentially happening.
So the thing, like, there's always something to the other, right? So with guilt, there's forgiveness. With fear, there's trust.
Yeah.
So it's the trust that you need to build in yourself that you're safe. That's how you overcome that fear of like, I trust that I'm safe. I trust that I'm going to make decisions that keep my family safe. I trust in a higher power. I trust in, whatever you believe in. That, when you start to build that trust, that's also where, like, it's like the fear still comes in. But when I let it go and I was like, I trust that whoever needs to join my program will join my program. And that's also another part of like facing it, questioning it, but then at the same time, just trusting. And
I might come and see you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just,
I've got so many workshops coming up on this.
And it's just one of those things that's for me. I've got so much fear surrounding my family.
Yeah.
I just don't want anything bad to
happen. Yeah.
And I can't say that because I always think, honestly, I believe in God very, 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 very much. And I feel like there's, a certain level of trust that I do have. It was never something that I can't manage.
Yeah.
But it's these small little I've noticed that I am stopping things from pleasurable things.
Yeah.
Just because I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah. So that a lot of thing is like, then a lot of the work I do with my clients is, what does that feel like? Trust feel like in your body.
Yeah.
And then you start to understand.
Yeah. I mean, I might have fear of, doing a talk, but it's nowhere near that fear.
Yeah.
The fear of, God forbid, something happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever be able to come back from it. Yeah. That type of thing. Like, that's what scares me. My mom and my dad, my sister, her kids, my very close-knit family, that they are the biggest blessing and the biggest worry in my life.
Yeah.
And that's where I stand. And that's where I know that, again, back in the day, it was always, she's a worrier. She worries about this. So that's not a good thing.
Yeah. That's exactly how people used to describe me, as a warrior, not a warrior.
Not a warrior.
Yeah.
It was more like she just worries about everything all the time.
Yeah.
And that's really unhealthy.
Yeah. It's not, but like, again, running towards it of like, what situation how can you stretch that belief a little bit? Like, where can you take them? That's not maybe to Southeast Asia, but maybe somewhere else. Again, finding that middle ground, that thought ladder to push that fear of like, oh, we did it. Here's mine now. Here's evidence that
Nothing that happened.
Yeah. And then the more you do it, the fear goes away, and then the trust.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, I always think about that because I don't want to be this overbearing parent.
Yeah.
As they get older,
Yeah.
there needs to be trust that they are going to make good decisions.
Yeah.
But I'm so fearful at that I'd rather protect them in a cotton wool
Yeah.
and not have them go anywhere.
Yeah.
But that's not healthy in any way, shape, or form. I mean, even me, I left home and I went to university. I was completely fine. It was great. Fine.
Yeah.
That was me. I was responsible for myself. Now I'm responsible for other human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it. I always thought, how are you okay with us being gone for 6 years? You know, and just, did you trust you? You know, trust. A ball of, trust.
Trusted you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kai, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. I
Thanks for having me. I love this.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
Me too.
And honestly, I feel like this was just more for me to get it out about at the time rather than everything else. This was really,
I'm sure some people listening will definitely resonate with what we just talked about today.
100%. Yeah. I'm going to re-listen to this.
Me too.
For everybody who's listening that want to get in touch with you, I know you've got lots of things happening for 2025. How can they reach out?
I mean, Instagram, Kai Simmonds, my website, Kai Simmonds, everything, Kai Simmonds. Yeah, just Kai Simmonds and you'll find me one way or another. Yeah.
Perfect. You know that I always kind of end this with a little quote. Yeah, I started with one.
Yeah.
Do you have one for us?
Yeah, I think we talked about it, but I just love it. And it's just to take up space. Take up space. And anything you can, let yourself be seen and heard. And like I was saying earlier, if you see another woman especially taking up space, cheer her on. Cheer her on. So just take up space. Yeah. It's safe.
I love it.
Yeah.
The work that you do, everything, the people's lives that you touch, honestly, it's invaluable. I mean, you are doing incredible things for people, for them to actually live a better life. And honestly, I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.